it's another episode of Business Bests. I'm Mike Byrnes here, hopefully bringing you a lot of good ideas to make your business more successful. On the last recording, we did email marketing, and I'm going to do part 2 of that. There's tons of information to share, hopefully giving you enough to have some good nuggets to think about to make your campaigns more successful. From an email standpoint, one of the things that I like to recommend is people step away from what they create. So a lot of times there's some deadline and they push to get things out. What happens in that case is sometimes you just see mistakes. You know, they send out things that they didn't think about. They didn't take the extra step to test it and test it on all devices too, right? So if you push out your content, does it look great on a mobile device? Does it look good on your laptop, whatever it might be, if that's something that's bigger or a big monitor? Honestly, does it look good in different email types too, or different email services, I should say? So if you have a Google or an Apple account, test that versus your work account and see how it looks. The more things you could test and look at, the better it will be. One thing I will say, and I didn't get to say it on the last episode, is I was talking about how important images are and how you can get pulled in, like a call to action can be way more successful with an image. But there are some defaults, especially if somebody hasn't interacted with you, that images won't show from a cybersecurity standpoint, right? Like you can have things that if you open an email and the images automatically upload, that something bad could happen to your system, right? So you kind of have to have a trusted sender for images to show. And your email then should perform really well in both, here's how it would look, best case scenario, they see the imagery, they see the branding, all that stuff. And then, oh, by the way, how would it perform if it was just text? You'll see things like the image will be displayed not as an image, but the file name that was uploaded. And sometimes it's all gibberish, right? Like it doesn't even tell people what that image is. So when you upload images, depending on what software you're using, you might have to label it. So if I put out something personal, it'll be like Mike and his family at the Red Sox game would be much more successful than 1, 2, 3, 4 JPEG or PNG or whatever it might be. Think about what that would look like. Get really familiar with what your emails look like in those 2 different environments. Pictures obviously can have more results. For example, a call to action button that's done really well can have more results than just the call to action that's simple text. I'm a very, very visual person. I'll say it a lot. 2/3 of people are visual learners. So in a day and age where we're getting too many words, we're getting inundated, how can you use visuals to be more successful? I'll go off on a little tangent too, is before you used to upload an image, you might have to go buy it, Getty Images or whatever the other famous things are. They might go out and you might see something you like and you got to pay $150 to $1,000 or whatever. And that imagery could have been really expensive. There are definitely sites that you can get stuff royalty free. And if you need that information, just let me know. But the other thing now that you can think about is AI can create images for you. It's going to be really put a lot of pressure on graphic designers in the future of their careers because it's getting so sophisticated. Before, you might have to work with a graphic designer. It could cost a lot of money if you really needed an important image. And it would take rounds and rounds and days and obviously dollars too to get what you want. Now in a 2 minutes, you can have these different variations of what you want and actually can come up with something better than you really initially thought. It's not quite there. It doesn't always function really well. But AI is a fantastic tool that you can use from a graphic arts design piece of this. So I had said let your email sit if you have time to do that. Then you can come back, have a fresh set of eyes. Another really good thing to do before you send an email is to have it tested with a small audience. So if let's say you have a list of 1,000 people, and maybe you're doing an A/B test of what you think between 500 and 500. Ask 1 or 2 people to just get their initial reaction if they're in that target market, and get their thoughts. Even ask AI, which one do you think will be more successful? Get input brainstorm with AI, have it proofread it. This is kind of the fun thing with marketing, especially if you're a sole person and you're doing this on your own, just to use AI because you might have a friend or a marketing professional that you could use, but they're swamped or they're just kind of sick of you going to them. AI is this kind of awesome resource that you can use all the time. So put in there and just say, hey, how could I make this better? Whatever prompts you want to come up with. How can I make this more scannable? Is this the best subject head I could have? Call to action, how does this work? What should I do to shorten this or make it more impactful? How could I make this more of a list? And so on. You can actually put in a lot of prompts about your audience too and get a sense of how they would feel about this information. And you might realize you're wasting time with the email you were going to send out and you got to totally revamp it, or you might notice that you need to tweak it a little bit. Now, if you have the beauty, the luxury of time, you can actually do more and more versions of this. The nice thing is, as you do all those kind of revisions and you think things through and you get that helpful input, obviously hiring a consultant would be another thing. You don't have to just use AI. But as you get that information, you get smarter each time and you'll be more successful. Marketing in the beginning, some people it's just like throwing spaghetti to the wall and see if it sticks. But over time, you'll get so good, you'll know that something's going to work. You almost, with a 90% confidence level, know that something's going to perform well versus it's not. You can't always know because different variables that are outside of your privy, but for sure, you can get better and better over time. The nice thing about AI too is you can start to feed it all your emails. You can feed it all your communications from your website, etc. And you can actually start to create better brand standards and better tones and a better way of communicating over time so that it can communicate in your voice. Or you can say, hey, I've always done it this way, but I'm going to try to change it. And then it can actually go in the direction that you want to go. I actually already talked about websites, but I don't think I talked about this. Is a useful, I guess, project for someone even as simple as an intern would be review every web page on your site in AI with some goal of improving it, something you want to do overall to your website, and feed it in there and actually have it generate improvements. So now go back to email marketing. How would you improve this and how would you make it better? I'd start to do a lot of A/B testing, right? Like be as scientific as you can. A question I would get asked all the time, let's say 10, 15 years ago was like, when's the right time to send the email? And it was kind of a standard marketing expert answer was 9 a.m. in your time zone on a Tuesday. The thought process was if they're business people, they came back from a weekend, Friday maybe they kind of didn't work fully as hard as they should. Monday's a really difficult day, they're catching up, so they're not going to have time to read the email. They've kind of caught up after Monday, so Tuesday morning, catch them before they get inundated with the day. And that was kind of the mentality of it. All that stuff throw out the window. I'll still hear people say, well, Tuesday morning and Thursday morning, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it depends on your audience. Are they stay-at-home moms? When are they their busiest? Are they corporate executives or business owners? When are they their busiest? What type of information you're sending? Like, is it something they could digest at the grocery store as they're checking out? Or is it something that they really need to sit down? I recently wrote an article for the Daily Upside, and they've actually gone away with some of the advice of what I'm saying. They actually push all the content in the email, so you have to click on anything. I get a little bummed out with that strategy because you can't know what's being clicked on, so you're losing some of the scientific information, but it is more simple, right? Like you could just scan and it's right there. It's less effort. So you could even do some testing that way, but be cautious going that route. A lot of people do that accidentally. They try to send out all their content. So imagine like a white paper is way too much, or even a 3-page article is just way too much to read on a smartphone. So I think what you need to figure out is what's the right balance of teasing people to get the initial message across, because they might not click on anything. But if they do click on it, then you can give them more information and they'll have more time to read it when they're ready to do that. there's a whole science to CTAs, calls to action, marketing lingo, CTAs. But like what you're gonna want to do is test even something as simple as an emoji. Like how silly is that? But I saw a statistic the other day that showed that the younger generations would actually get upset if a message came through without an emoji on it because that was less personalized, right? Like these emojis all have some message, and some actually have messages that you might not think what it shows and represents might have a second meaning. So be careful of what you push out there. Talk with the next generation about what some of those might be, if you could get someone to give you that knowledge. But be careful. Also, emojis can be a spam filter issue. They can trigger different things to get you segmented and get you pushed out of the main inbox. So be careful. But they can be powerful, right? They can help you open stuff. They can be little versions of pictures that can get your eyes and your attention to something. So when you do the testing and learning and being scientific, think about everything as much as should you do all caps? That's crazy. It seems like you're shouting, but sometimes you want to shout for joy or let somebody know there's something great happening. But be careful with that. Don't over abuse it. Just use it every once in a while. I think those things can be a cause. All caps can also be a cause for something going into a spam filter. I would say the spam filters that we have today are very, very, inadequate, right? We're getting a lot of stuff that comes through. They're getting better, but so know that they're going to get better and better and better. So beware. Always kind of stay up on the trends of what's going to get your email accidentally into the spam folder. Let's talk about deliverability. That means you send your email out and it has no chance of going through. Like it's been blocked before you even communicate anything. That is a real issue. So if you use an email vendor that allows its clients to abuse the system and spam and do all these bad things, over time, the system will filter out that company. So any email coming from that company might not get through. One of the reasons earlier on we picked Constant Contact was because they had a higher deliverability than some of their competitors. I haven't looked at it in a little bit. I would encourage you to go look at what that might be. The more reputable they are, MailChimp and some of the other ones, hopefully they are doing a very good job of policing their clients because the more that they grow the list the right way, the more that they're not sending out spam and such, the more likely the deliverability will be good for that service provider. So they have an interest of policing their own people, their own clients. So from a deliverability standpoint, know what that is. If you can ask an email provider before you choose them what that is. If you get independent information, that's even better because they're obviously going to show you the most rosy results that they have. But know what that is because you're going to say, hey, the company says we have a 91% deliverability. Well, guess what? 9% of your emails are not going through automatically. One way to have terrible deliverability is to use the old blind CC field. If you are sending out something to, let's say, 50 people or 100 people and you're using BCC, there are all kinds of red flags to say, hey, this isn't something that should go through. That was like the initial version of spammers would use that type of technology. And still to this day, it's abused too much so that they're going to probably put you off into a spam filter unless you already kind of have an interaction with that person that's sending you emails. So get really advanced, use a high-end provider for email marketing, but at the same time, if you have to send things out on your own from your own environment, know the tricks and the trades that can get you in trouble or can be more successful. One of the ways that you can get in trouble with emails is actually just buying lists or subscribing people that you somehow capture their email, but you didn't have their permission. And then you send out the email and a high percentage of people mark it as spam or unsubscribe. The website providers, whether it's the recipient software or the one that you're sending through, will get notified. And they can actually blacklist you, and you can get shut off from the email service that you're paying for, or you can lose an audience that you're sending to that just never ever going to have your emails go through again. be very careful about how you add things on, and know the canned spam laws. I'm not going to go into the whole compliance thing. That's not my expertise. But be aware of what some of those things are. I know there's been big lawsuits with publishers in the past that have bought lists and merged them in, and they didn't really have the ability to message people because they didn't opt in, and you can get in trouble there. So how do you get lists the right way? You might want to have we've talked about freemiums, some giveaway on your website that will allow you to capture their information. And in there, you probably want to have something that says, hey, make sure that you can subscribe. If you sign up for this, you're getting whatever I'm giving away. But if you click this button, you can also subscribe to our email. So then they're kind of opting into your email. Some people skip that little step, and that's where they might get, it's a gray area, they might get in trouble. One thing I will say is you might want to make your own unsubscribed option button. So, hey, if you no longer want to get this email communication from us, let us know, click here, as opposed to using the mail services option. Because then they're not going to track it. It's going to be more manual for you to say, hey, okay, this person doesn't want the email anymore. I got to go and physically restrict them from getting emails in the future. But what that's going to save you from saying, oh, 10% of the people that receive this email opted out, they unsubscribed, there's something wrong with this person that's like a spammer, and these red flags go off. So that might be a little secret that you might want to have. Again, you don't want to have something that is a call to action that's pulling away from your real call to action, like unsubscribe shouldn't be a call to action you're really trying to promote. But maybe that's something that's just a little bit more noticeable than the other unsubscribe that's usually at the bottom of an email on an e-newsletter, for example. I did earlier talk about pictures and how important they are. Well, videos are something you might want to send out too. There are ways to do it. If you sent out a chunky file, the email's not going to go through, right? So you're going to hit some kind of resistance with the recipient software. Even your email provider might not send it out if it's some big chunky file. So what you need to figure out is, how does that work? Where is the video housed? Can you embed it? What does that look like? Do you want to have an image that is clickable and teases people to go watch your video, and then it's sent to a different environment to watch the video? I'll give you an example. You can embed the YouTube code to a YouTube video, but then that thumbnail might come up, or different imagery. Sometimes when you drop a URL, different things show up, and you can't always control that in the email vendor that you're using. So you might want to go with something where you actually upload an image that you completely customize. So it's like goofy guy speaking, freezing, or maybe even isn't showing the person. It's just some cool image. Really powerful words, some really cool thing that's gonna, I gotta watch that. It's gonna suck me in. I gotta get in there. And then that, when you click on that, it takes you to the video and wherever it's housed. So it might be sitting on your website. It might be on a social media page. It might be in YouTube or whatever it might be. So make sure that you're trying to incorporate video. This is one that you want to test and learn too. What's your audience like? Like, do they like text? Do they like images? Do they like videos? What are the things that they usually click on? Back on that question about when to time things and when to send them. Video might take more time to digest, right? Depending on the length of the video too. So there might be a time where you want to share it after hours or before hours. Sometimes people are successful with email campaigns before people go into work or get busy with their day. The other thing too is, like, how do you, with imagery and videos, I didn't say this in the imagery standpoint, but how do you show things? Is it landscape or is it vertical, portrait? You need to figure out your audience and how they're opening it. A thing like Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever, they're going to give you the information of how people are digesting it. It was opened on mobile devices, for example, and it will even tell you, like, this percentage were smartphones. If you, let's just say you saw that 80% of your messages were pushed out, were opened on a smartphone, that you now need to think about your imagery needs to look good in this type of screen. If you figure out that they need to look good in that type of screen, then you have a whole different strategy, right? And you actually might want to start to think about like short videos, for example, shorts, that is, on YouTube, because if you have an attention span of a gnat, if that's your audience, shorts are going to do better than a 10, 15-minute video or even longer that might actually look good on a laptop or a full-size monitor. So again, know your audience, what you're trying to accomplish, and consider videos and how you're going to incorporate them into your email strategy. I'd really be curious if you have something that's working, performing really well from an email standpoint. I've actually seen this kind of work really well, like a tip of the day, where somebody gives a quick video tip. Someone that receives it kind of gets to know, like, this is going to be short and digestible, and they can get in and out quick. So those email strategies can be really powerful. You can also create a playlist so that video will play over and over, it will play in a series of other things. So if they like it, they can continue to keep watching it. But we're, again, a trend you don't have to love, but we're this ADD society. You know, we want all our information really quick. The other thing about video too is just sometimes people just can't be around sound being heard on their device. Maybe they work in a queue, but it's open, or they're digesting it somewhere at a library and it needs to be quiet. So if you do have video, don't be afraid in email to incorporate the text that goes with it. There are services that actually will help you transcribe the video into text. And then, you know, sometimes that just doesn't read really well. That's where AI can help you really. You know, if you have say the transcript is 5,000 words of the video that you created, you could go to AI and say, hey, can you cut this down to make this into an article that's very scannable, that's 1,500 words. And then the nice thing about that is it's not going to hallucinate so much because it's using your content. It's not going to be pulling things from all over. And you can actually limit it depending on what service you're using for AI too. Some are actually known to just limit. Some are still always trying to pick things across the internet. But if you want it to be just your content, then you can actually shorten it. So let's say you do that step. You go from 5,000 words to writing an article for 1,500 words. You put that video and that article on your website, and then now you say, hey, AI, can you actually summarize this text in one sentence or two that would be very exciting for readers in an email to want to click on it to learn more, and just see what comes out. And the nice thing is you can actually just copy and paste this into all that prompt and that text into all the different AI vendors out there, all the different solutions, and then just pick the one that you like the best. Kind of have them compete without knowing. And actually sometimes they'll give you the first draft, and then you go into another AI software and say, hey, wordsmith this further, and then you get more versions and more variations. And then again, you could use the best two as a A/B test and see which one works, and then you might feel more comfortable over time with using one AI solution over the other. The biggest disconnect that I see with the success of learning from emails and getting better at it is that some junior marketing person is in charge of the email campaign. They've been trained, they've been there a couple years, and they get these statistics, and maybe they report once a month on open rates and close rates, but they're not really getting down into the nitty-gritty of saying, hey, Jim Smith opened this email and he was really interested in this topic, retirement planning, whatever it might be, and then getting it back to the person that really would care about it. Like, so who owns that client? Who is the person that's the salesperson or the client service person? Even does management know that all these different things are happening within their client base or their prospect list? And what are the triggers that this junior marketing person can actually say, hey, wow, that's a really interesting thing that somebody should act on? And so the nice thing with marketing is sometimes sales and marketing go really well together with cadence marketing. So you blast something out, you see some initial interest. That's where the salesperson is going to be more successful, knowing that somebody clicked on a topic of interest. You got to be a little careful with this. I've said this before. If they feel like Big Brother is watching every single thing that's being clicked on, they're never going to click on stuff anymore, right? They're just going to ignore your email because they're going to feel like, oh, if I click on that, I'm going to get a call from the salesperson. So you kind of sometimes do it subtly. I would caution you on not using the data at all, though, because that's the genius of some of these things. You're paying for that information. So how busy are the senior people? Sometimes it's their fault. They don't want to have the time to look through this. Other times it's the junior marketing person that just doesn't know how to digest this information and feed it back. This is where, I'm sorry to toot a consultant's horn, but you got to think about someone that could take this information and make some sense of it. Because imagine you get a lead to go from a cold lead to a warm lead to a really warm lead with the email marketing, but they're just not quite ready to take that next step and make the phone call or come into your office, send the email, whatever it might be. They just needed to be dripped on one more time in a different manner. So make sure that your sales and marketing efforts work hand in hand, and the reporting is just going to make you that much more sophisticated at it. The last thing I will say as we start to wrap up this topic is to not be boring, like have some personality. When we do testing, and I've said this I think in other video segments, is I see a lot with professionals that if you can make the personal connection, it's going to be that much more successful. So do some testing between personal news and business news. It might be something that you realize, wow, your audience really does care more about the human element. Humans want to work with humans. You hear me say that all the time. But if that's the case, how do you maximize that, but also get your main core messages across? You might learn that you might want to change your whole communication strategy based on that type of information. So do that A/B testing, not just with two very similar topics, but make it one personal versus professional. So I've given examples before of like someone has a baby in the audience. Usually something like that will skyrocket compared to something that an economist might send out. And it's great, but you get it every 2 weeks, and it's kind of the same thing in a different way every time. And that lack of creativity and change can lose your audience. If somebody knows that they can go and always get the human element, it's kind of uplifting, glasses half full, it's going to brighten their day, they're going to be more likely to want to get in and digest that. To counter that, like if you want to put in there that the world is going to end, that's going to open your email. It's going to increase your email rates. But too much of that can obviously lose your audience over time. So make sure you figure out what your brand personality is, and then how you're communicating. And then again, I'll say it over and over: don't trust a consultant blowing a lot of hot air. Go test the stuff. I love to know if it's true or not. Like if you see that advice works, maximize it, filter back to me. I love to hear all the different success stories and things that you learn. It might be something that you learn too, that your email frequency, you might want to have something that's just personal in nature. Friday fun day, whatever it might be, or is there something that is personal in nature that goes out as a separate email versus the work-related one. So don't just in the email test click-through rates, test titles with personal versus professional and see which ones get more open rates. Once you kind of know that information, you'll know what you should be pushing out, how you should size it, how you should prioritize it. All that stuff will make you more successful. I'll end on one really kind of marketing 401 kind of level thing, is that an email can actually become someone's ID. If you think about it, when you go log into different services, for example, I give blood a lot. So if I wanted to go get all my history, I got to put in my email and my password. So even though people are predicting that email is going to go away, it's still one of the main ways that we log into anything online, right? So that it would be difficult for that to go away. But there are also services that you can overlay knowing someone's email, and you can gather all kinds of other interesting information. Someday we'll have a video just on digital advertising. But wow, if you can overlay all this different information and you have their email, you can actually do advertising campaigns around that type of email. So whether it's a specific person, but you're probably going to do something more like create this persona around this person based on all the data that you've gathered. And it can be really powerful. I can't get into it because I'm running out of time, but I do want to say that The email address is something that actually holds more worth than you would think. So hold it and cherish it. Don't abuse your email lists, and do it the right way and test and learn. I'm Mike Byrnes here with another episode of Business Bests. I really, truly hope that I'm helping you become more successful. Thanks for tuning in.